Oh, have you forgotten about former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton? Probably not, because she's making the rounds selling her stupid new book, State of Terror, co-written with Louise Penny. Clinton discusses the geopolitical thriller with hosts of The View, Good Morning America, and even on Late Night.
This is about a new Secretary of State and there's also a character who's a former president who is reckless.
You could say that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think there are other words.
He's from Palm Beach.
Well, a lot of people live.
Yeah, a lot of people live it, right. Yeah. But was he inspired by anyone? Was there anybody in the real life?
He is fictional, Seth.
Yeah,
he is fictional. However, having lived through the prior 4 years, it wasn't too hard to imagine.
Yeah.
And the president is someone who gets the country into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some of it of his own making, and some of it because he doesn't understand how other bad actors are actually using him.
Love the leather. Sounds like maybe this was inspired by her own husband. Why is the media now letting Clinton sell this book without getting any questions about Jeffrey Epstein? I think we know the answer, but I asked the question in a new piece at The Federalist. Given so far how much the public has learned about Bill Clinton's ties to Jeffrey Epstein in recent years. And I think this is important, Ryan, because actually since her run for president, in those years between her run for president and when she's now on this book tour, she's refused to go away, but we actually have gotten a lot of new details about Bill Clinton's ties to Jeffrey Epstein's world. We've learned from a documentary that was bizarrely executive produced by James Patterson, who is Bill Clinton's repeated co-author on their novels, that you have one of Epstein's most vocal accusers, Virginia Giuffre, who was with him for years, and then you also have this guy Steve, I forget his name, Steve Scully, something like that, who worked at Little St. James, Orgy Island, for years. Both of them say Bill Clinton was there. Bill Clinton still maintains he has never been there. 2 eyewitnesses have said on the record that he was there. There are discrepancies between the flight logs. Bill Clinton says, for instance, he was only on the Epstein plane 4 times. Reports show that, if you believe Gawker, was about a dozen. If you believe Fox News, that was more than 2 dozen. So what are those discrepancies about? And then also the picture of Bill Clinton getting his neck rubbed by Jeffrey Epstein's 22-year-old masseuse after his presidency while they were on a humanitarian trip to Africa was released in 2020. All of this, has Hillary Clinton paid enough for her husband's sins? Sure, but this is an incredibly serious story, an incredibly relevant story, and presumably she's asked him about it. Presumably she's asked him about the pictures. These questions seem to me to be fair game.
I think it would be fair to ask about what she thinks of Epstein's suicide/homicide.
There you go.
I don't quite know if she's the one to grill about Bill Clinton gallivanting around the world with Epstein.
She's
I don't
enriching.
know. I'm not defending Hillary Clinton, but what's she going to say about her?
She's going to deny it. I say that in the piece. She's going to deny it. But the point is that, her little book tour.
But does she know even? In journalism, to me, you want to go to the source who has knowledge of the situation with the questions. What does she know?
Well, she probably knows something because I
think she, yes. So what does she, and that is an interesting quote, what does she know about Epstein?
Exactly. And that's what, again.
I don't think she knows much about what Clinton was up to.
Well, so when Virginia Giuffre says she asked Jeffrey Epstein why Bill Clinton was on the island, Epstein, according to Giuffre, laughed and said, he owes me a favor. And so there's obviously something there too. But when Hillary Clinton is on this little book tour, she's trading on their names and enriching their family, right? She's trying to sell more books to have more money, and she's trying to, basically advance her silly neoliberal message to continue advancing her power and her name and making more money. And so I think if you're going to be doing that, and you presumably have some information about it, are you going to deny it? Sure. But I think it's perfectly fair that, and by the way, none of these people are going to get interviews if they say they asked that question, right? So if The View said, well, we're happy to have her on and talk about the book, if she answers a question about Epstein, Hillary Clinton's team is going to say absolutely not.
Well, you can ask it that she just might not come back the next time.
But
she's going to have another book, and as long as The View's got an audience, she's probably going to come back. Maybe the way to frame it would be, what does it say about your particular social scene? that somebody like Epstein, who was convicted in 2009,
Yeah.
remained a figure in good standing.
Yeah.
That you continued to interact with socially, that your husband continued to interact with socially. What is it? What lessons have you drawn from that? Like you could put it to her in a way like that, because I do like hitting her for all of Bill Clinton's misdeeds.
100%.
It's like, yes, okay, she has decided to remain married to the guy, and so to that extent, she's responsible to a degree for what he's up to.
She has suffered plenty for his sins. Yes.
Right.
I agree with that. Yeah. I do think, though, that you, just like all of those questions you rattled off, I think proves the point that there are legitimate lines of inquiry here. You don't have to sit her down and say, what did Bill Clinton do with Jeffrey Epstein? But there are ways to get at this question that I think it's outrageous, but not surprising whatsoever that she's not facing them.
I would have gone with, you've speculated that Putin ordered the January 6th insurrection.
Right.
You've also condemned misinformation. Like, how do you square those two things?
Oh,
she has said so much bonkers stuff.
Yes.
Like about Putin conspiracies.
It's crazy.
That I think there'd be a line of questioning where you could say, how does this square with your complaint that misinformation is one of the big problems of our era?
Well, and also election skepticism, because she had planted the seeds of doubt for a long time. I bet she still would if you ask her about it. And if you go look at the View interview, it's literally a 9-minute tongue bath. It's unbelievable. And even for the View, it's bad. And it's not as though she's gotten, it's funny because even that is not terribly divergent from the treatment she's gotten at, like, quote, serious news outlets. It's just like they have Hillary Clinton on to sell her book and let her rant and rave about these conspiracies that she's floated, about the seeds of doubt she's planted in terms of election integrity. She's just a massive hypocrite that doesn't get any serious questioning about it, even though she thinks she's a victim of a vast right-wing conspiracy and a very angry and
which she was in the 90s.
Vast.
It was vast. It was pretty vast. The Mellons spent millions of dollars to orchestrate a takedown of the president. Starting with Whitewater, and then when that didn't come together, they eventually landed on Monica Lewinsky years later. That was a real thing.
That's a real thing, but the word vast, I think, is obviously subjective and relative, and the vast conspiracy that was perpetrated on the entire country at her hands with the Russia collusion narrative is another really good example, where you have all of these institutions and all of these nonprofits and all of these journalists and everyone involved in foisting that. I feel like it is something that is institutionalized on both sides, but at the same time, I completely get what you're saying. I think it is an outrage, and it's shameful for people who see themselves as journalists to not go there when it comes to Epstein, because the story is just too serious for her to get a pass.
Right. One vast conspiracy deserves another vast conspiracy, both of which cover up an actual vast conspiracy that Jeffrey Epstein was at the center of.
That's perfectly said, sadly.
We have another great show for you tomorrow. Brianna Joy Gray joins us to discuss the tight Virginia governor's race. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe in whichever order you like. We will see you all tomorrow.